Hey, got something really cool I want to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. Alright, guys, going to be another fun episode. So in this episode, I am bringing the idea from my buddy Jason Smith. So Jason was on the show, and he enjoyed it so much that he jumped into our private group where we talk about, the Success Champion podcast, and, we talk to guests and do some Q&A things. But, as we talked about with last Friday's show, where Patrick Mudge came up with the concept for the show, this week Jason Smith came up with the concept of, what are those skill sets you really need to go from employee to entrepreneur. So sit tight. This will be a fun, kick-ass Friday episode. So hey guys, it's Kick-Ass Fridays. Man, I love doing these shows. And it's so much fun to have people who support this and are engaged with this that, are helping me come up with these cool ideas for these Kick-Ass Fridays. This is going to be a fun episode for me because I'm going to really talk about, the skills that you needed if you want to go from an employee to an entrepreneur. And here's the truth, guys.
is I'm almost to my 1 year mark of running my own company and being 100% dependent on, what I do as a business owner. And I can promise you without a shadow of a doubt that the guy who jumped in 1 year ago is not the same guy sitting here doing this particular podcast. We are two completely different people. So it's going to be fun talking about my complete ignorance about being a business owner. And, I'm going to talk about the advice I gave, prior to running my own business and how it wasn't the wrong advice, but it was definitely advice that wasn't based on knowledge I needed to be able to give that advice. So, it was a great advice is what the person needed, but I didn't have enough experience to warrant giving out that particular advice. So here's my journey. As you guys know, September of last year, I had kind of an epiphany, a light bulb moment that, I was tired of working for somebody else. I was tired of making other people money, and I needed to do something else. And I just didn't know what that something else was. I love telling people I thought that, maybe I was going to be the next Tony Robbins or I was going to be the next greatest guy on stage, whether it be teaching sales or maybe it was, being a coach or it was motivational speaking, whatever. I just knew there was something more to me. And to be honest, I didn't know what that something more was. I was just cocky enough to think that if I jumped out on my own and I went for it, the world was just going to show up and with me. Let me tell you, when you go with that thought process of completely blindly jumping in and expect the universe to just catch you, I'm on the fence whether that's the best course of action. And for me, the reason I'm on the fence with it is because I'm still figuring out if my parachute's going to catch me. Because when I walked away from, corporate America to do this business, I did it without any game plan, without any processes. I wasn't even sure what I was going to do. I just knew that I had to go figure it out. So luckily, I had people jump in with me to run with all this. But it's been a journey of, what do I do and how do I figure it out along the way? And let me tell you, every preconceived notion I had about being a business owner is 100% flipped on its head. I think I never, acknowledge this, but I think I bought into the concept of, the do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, or, you work your ass off and the universe is going to show up. Yeah, what they don't tell you with that thought process is if you don't have something to sell, you got nothing. If you don't have processes to follow, you're going to explode. And I'm not talking about explode in a good way. I'm talking about everything's going to go the wrong direction. So when you jump out on your own to do this thing they call being an entrepreneur, I'm telling you right now, everything that you think is going to happen to you, everything that you think is going to work, everything that you think is going to move you forward is absolutely going to break. It's absolutely going to screw up. It's absolutely going to fall apart. And by the time you start figuring things out, you're going to be on the cusp of testing every resilient bone in your body. Because, guys, this is a bitch. This is tough. And this is not something that you can be mentally prepared for until you're in it. And I'll put it, in complete comparison. I'm sure there's something in your life that you got into, and prior to going into it, you're like, I got this. And once you got into it, you went, holy shit, I'm in over my head. That's entrepreneurship. To me, that sums it up completely. And I think that doing or becoming an entrepreneur is 100% your ability to outlast the shit until things start clicking. And I mean, because that's still to this day what I'm doing. That's still to this day what I'm figuring out is how do I survive long enough that my business hits that next level and takes off. You know, I don't think you can be mentally prepared enough to become an entrepreneur especially if you've spent your entire career being an employee. You know, because even though I was a straight commission sales guy, I would have told you prior to jumping into this that, dude, this is not going to be a problem. I know how to sell. Right? I know how to manage my time. I know how to interact with people. But when you don't have to take care of all the other stuff, the operations, the accounting, the scheduling, the taking out the trash, the whatever, when you don't have to take care of all of that, then life gets really crazy when you're now slung into a game that you've got to manage it all. Because what you don't think about, and I'm going to this is my story, I mean, from the sales bit, what you don't think about is as a sales guy, I got one mission. And that mission is how can I go meet the right people, get them to sit down, have a conversation, and purchase what I have, right? That's my mission. Now my mission as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, is how do I scale? How do I grow? What are my processes? How do I duplicate? How do I create? How do I come up with, the next version of my company? Because when you're an employee, there is some form of collaboration, right? There's some form of, people to lean on, reach out. But when you jump out, if you don't have that support group, and thank God I've got some good friends that allow me to be, I'll say, a shoulder to lean on because, I've screwed some shit up well doing this, then, dude, you're out there on your own. And it gets tough really quick trying to figure all this out. The dumbest things I did was I went out without a plan. I didn't really know what I was going to do. So the first thing you got to do is if you're going to go out, put together some sort of plan or strategy. I can promise you it's going to 100% change. And I'm not talking about putting together a business plan. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about putting together a business model. This is what I have. This is what I sell. This is what I do, right? So I was opening a coaching practice, but didn't understand that I needed to create a coaching process. What's step 1 to 6, right? I would put together a speaking portion of my business, but didn't understand that there's a process to go get speaking engagements. My last career prior to doing this was I was a sales trainer. So to get speaking engagements, I just went to places and say I speak on sales. Well, now I was trying to do this whole motivational thing and didn't understand that there was this whole other aspect to being a professional speaker. I mean, I'm a damn good networker. A really good networker. But I hadn't done networking on a national basis to grow a reputation and a brand that people wanted to bring in. So I had to start learning how to become that brand that people were interested in. Because if you're going to go on the big speaking gauge, it has no whatsoever. It's not about you. I mean, it's not about what your website says. It's not about what you say. It's how everybody else carries your name out there and represents you in the marketplace, so your name comes up in the right conversations and people reach out to you to get these gigs. Because the big stages where people are making 50, 100,000 more money, that has nothing to do with who you are. It has 100% with who knows you. Because those event planners and those type of things that are hiring for these gigs and stuff, you can send every proposal you want to your blue in the face. They're not going to pick you up until somebody else says, hey, have you heard of Donnie? Right? You should really reach out to him to get that kind of information. It'd be great for your stage. You just don't know what you don't know until you get in the game. Marine Corps boot camp, all the physical working out and everything that I did prior to going to boot camp, and I've got this mental game bullshit that I told myself. Shoot. Dude, once you get in the game, that's when you're tested. That's when you figure it out. That's when you decide or figure out what you're made of and what you can handle and what you can do. But it's not until you're in it that things can start clicking and figuring it out. So the other thing that I love that Jason and I, we talked about this a little bit for the show, is your ability to ebb and flow and your ability to go with the punches is probably one of the biggest assets that you're going to have that is what's going to make your business work. And your ability to really roll with the punches is going to be your greatest asset. And, I love the phrase that Rocky Balboa puts out there. It's not about how hard you can be hit or how hard you can take a hit, how hard you can take a hit and keep moving forward, right? Because being out here learning all this, you have got to, you're going to get punched in the face. You're mentally going to get your teeth kicked in. And if you can't roll through that and keep pushing forward, then you're never going to make it. And I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat this on the back end. Right? I know a lot of people come out and they're like, oh, this is tough, but you can do it. Screw all that. For me, if you're going to bitch and moan and cry through this process, all things I've done, then, dude, don't even think about it. Matter of fact, you're probably better off just being a damn employee. And the reason I say that is because you're going to have to really get after it like you've never gotten after it to make this stuff work. Everything I thought I was going to do with my business in the beginning, it's completely different. It's completely changed, and it's completely something new. I mean, something completely new. I mean, for instance, this podcast, if you'd told me even September of last year, hell, December of last year, January of this year, I mean, all the way up till April, I think, of this year, beginning of May, that I was going to have a podcast as part of my business, shit, I'd laughed at you. And now I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, thank God I started this podcast. Because it wasn't until I started this podcast that things started clicking for my business. And it's 100% because I was putting all effort and energy towards creating something. I'm grateful for my coaching clients. I really, truly am. But my business model wasn't scalable. Once I hit a certain level of clients, I was capped and I had nothing to continue to move forward with. So it was this ability to finally have something to focus on, which was the podcast, that really got me to start thinking, where was my company going? What was I creating? What was I selling? What was I doing? And I know a lot of people, they run through that mindset of, I'm good at X, so I could be an entrepreneur because I can do X. Guys, I'm a sales guy. I'm a good sales guy. And I really thought that my ability to sell was going to be the thing that put me over the top when it came to succeeding as an entrepreneur, because I can sell my way out of anything. Well, that's like taking your best sales guy and making them your sales manager. It's the stupidest thought process in the world, right? Because you have talent and skills that you've honed and created, but selling business does not make a business. It takes everything else as well. You've got to be just as good at the operational stuff as you are at bringing the business in. it's a whole ball of wax. I mean, it's not just one or the other. And it took me really getting my teeth kicked in on this, and I continue to figure it out, to realize that, for this to really work, for this to become something, then I've got to start putting processes to my business and start building and moving forward. Because I've had some great wins with my business, some great ups. I've had some months where I'm like, shit, what is my business doing? What's next? What's that next move? And I go back, thank God for the podcast, because, the podcast started making me think about, what's my business strategy? What am I doing with this? How am I growing it? How am I grooming it? What is it going to become? And it was because of the podcast that I came up with this whole social content thing that the company's doing now, that I absolutely love doing. It's a complete blast, but it wouldn't have come about had I not been doing a podcast. And, so you've got to be able to do two things, I think, to change that employee mindset and become an entrepreneur. And number one is you've got to be willing to take a risk. I think you have to be willing to bet the farm to be an entrepreneur. If you're not willing to throw everything on the line, then this isn't going to work for you. Second is that you have got to be able to look at everything as a learning experience, everything as a opportunity to learn something new, because you're going to get hit with shit that you would never have saw coming a mile away. And you're going to walk up into things and go, well, how the hell was I supposed to know that was going to happen? Or how the hell did I know I needed to do that? And I can't even begin to tell you what those things are going to be, because I'm still learning them. Every time something happens to me, I'm like, fuck, where the hell was that? Where did that come from? And there's no way of knowing it. No way anybody can prepare you for it. You just got to be able to go through it. And for me, that's it, man. It's that ability to go through it and learn it, that all this starts clicking and all this starts thriving and all this starts moving forward. Because if you can't, in Jason's words, roll with those punches, you're screwed. You're never going to win this game. Because it's like being, in the military. Every plan or every idea that you lay out there, it's going to fail. It's not going to be the same way you laid it out, and it's going to evolve and change. So you have got to be able to take a hit and keep moving forward. Because without that ability, then you're not going to handle the ups and downs of this game, and you're not going to be able to figure out how do you keep pressing forward with all this. And that leads to the next idea is you better have a support system. You better have something to lean on, because this game is going to wear you out, and you're going to have a lot of ebb and flows. I can tell you, I've got some really close buddies that when I get stacked up against it, that I lean on, and it's amazing how these guys can give me clarity. And, from the random phone calls just to check in are beautiful things. The late night cocktail, or the cigar conversations, or just the text conversations and phone conversations, Christ, my wife, all these things come together, and they have to work. They have to be there, because as you're going through the muck, man, you're going to need somebody to lean on. I mean, a couple of my friends have gotten phone calls of, holy shit, I don't know what to do here. And the truth of the matter is when I've said that, I know what to do. But I got to vent somehow, and I got to get that build-up out so I can get logical and get out of an emotional thought process and be able to move forward. Because, as you're going through anything and you're learning, it's going to get tough. And, it's fun is I have a couple of people that are way further in their career than I am, and they laugh sometimes when I say, "Fuck, I just didn't know that was going to be a thing I needed to learn." And they laugh because they're like, "Oh yeah, it gets better from here." Meaning, those learning processes are going to get bigger. those screw ups are going to get bigger. Those screw ups are going to cost you more money. Even with this business, I have thrown a lot of money at trying to figure things out, and that's the game. That's the whole ball of wax on this thing is you've got to be willing to learn from those entire interactions because it's going to be tough and you're going to have some late nights. The other thing they don't prepare you for is the random 3 o'clock wake ups. This drives my wife nuts right now. But I have to keep a notepad and my phone right next to my bed where I can readily write down an idea because as you're going through, you're going to live, eat, and sleep your business. Kiss your ordinary life goodbye because everything you talk about, every interaction you're going to have is going to be about what you're doing with your business because if it's not, you're not going to make it. Because if you're not getting a 3 o'clock wake-up call with a new idea or thought process, you're not putting enough time in your business. And I can tell you that without a shadow of doubt because the days that I just do and I'm not going hard and heavy in my business, I sleep great. And it's the days that I'm really heavy working on the business that my mind really starts churning and I get woke up in the middle of the night going, holy shit, it's a great idea. Now, I can tell you, I don't always implement those ideas. I think there's a different thought process from the unconscious to conscious thought than to the wake up and evaluate thought. So I don't always implement those ideas, but some of my best stuff has come from those 3 o'clock in the morning wake-ups. I can tell you that this entire content portion of my company came from a 3 o'clock in the morning wake-up so much that I had to run downstairs and write this all out, kind of the flow process. And it's unfortunate for my wife because, she having to deal with me in these random wake-ups or my phone's glowing because I may have left my notepad downstairs. And, now she's trying to sleep and I'm under, the comforter trying to not wake her up. And now I'm glowing the whole bed like an alien starship because the light's emanating underneath the whole blanket, as I'm writing down the concept of ideas. But that's when I know my business is starting to continue or continues to click is when I'm constantly turning ideas. And then, the last portion of all of this is, and you have got to be taking actions and executing. I'm an idea guy. That's been my thing for years. I'm really good at coming up with strategies and plans, but the downfall, I think, of every entrepreneur is execution. And if you don't implement the ideas you come up with, it's game over. I can come up with all the ideas in the world, and I remember sitting across from a guy once upon a time that, was developing this whole marketing company, and he spent the entire time just thinking and not doing. Well, I've caught myself doing that a couple times. That guy's business is completely gone now because he never executed. He just kept coming up with strategies and plans. And unfortunately, I know how much money that cost him to do all that. So you have got to build a way in that you spend a portion of your day strategizing and maybe writing things down to figure it out. And the other portion of your day better be executing. I still find myself looking like that damn dog off of the movie Up and squirreling out all over the place. And it's wow. You look at my computer screen, and I'm liable to have 20 tabs open, editing a podcast, doing something on social media, reading content for a client, and responding to emails, taking phone calls, being on Zoom. All these things are going at once because I'm trying to force myself into actions that will move the company forward. Oh, and while doing all that, trying to stay out and do networking, because if you're not meeting new people and engaging with new people, then you're not growing your business, because if you're just going to let social media win the day for you, and grow your business for you. I got to root away from it for you. You better get your ass out doing what made you money in the first place. I mean, it's my buddy Chuck that looked at me and said, dude, at one point, he's like, you started your business and you walked away from all networking. You need to remember that networking built your businesses. Get back in the game. It was that advice that got me out and networking better in my local areas and even networking better online. That it saved my business because of the people I meet. And the other difference I've noticed for me being an entrepreneur, and this is related to networking, is my conversations have changed. When I was just a sales guy working for somebody else, I always kind of had that thought in the back of my head of, can I turn this person into a client? Is there something that I can do to get them to bring their business to me to do? Now the conversation has changed because I'm seeking more knowledge. I'm seeking out other people that have done this and built their businesses, and I'm seeking knowledge. So the amount of collaboration conversations has been huge. And that's been a cool, fun mental shift for me because, I love networking. I love meeting people. And I love, going into conversations without expectations. But I've learned to take that to a whole new level because I'm genuinely interested in what somebody's doing with their business and how they're finding success with that. Because before it was, what do I have? What do I need to sell? What do they need? How do I marry the two? Now it's, they have knowledge I need, and I may not do it the way they do it. I may not roll it out the way they do it, but that advice is really, really invaluable and much appreciated. And I've learned a level, and some of you who know me well are going to laugh at this, but I've learned a whole new level of humility through this process because I'm a pretty cocky guy. That's not the portion I'm telling you to laugh at, but I know some of you are. I'm a pretty cocky guy, and I don't like being in a room without feeling like, I have all the answers. It's my MO, my style. So to going to a spot to where I'm seeking advice has been a hell of a heaping spoonful of humility for me to learn that I've still got a crap ton to learn. It's a crazy, crazy ride for me, a crazy thought process. This journey so far, and September is going to mark a year of doing this. And, part of the things that I think about is, you hear the stories of these people that their first year in business, they did millions of dollars, and they did this, and they did that. And I'm thinking, fuck, my first year in business, and I'm still figuring it out, I'm still figuring out what's going to work, what's going to be this evolution. And that's all the kind of stuff they don't tell you about, jumping out on your own. And I really hope this podcast gets the shit out of you. I really hope that this podcast makes you second guess if you're thinking about jumping out on your own, because you're going to have to battle your two fears. As you jump out on your own, it's not necessarily just the fear of failure you got to worry about. It's the fear of what everybody else is going to think about you if it doesn't succeed. Those are heavy things to be carrying around as you build your business, and if you're not ready for that, then don't even start. And, this is that point where I'm supposed to say, but some of you can pull it off and some of you can figure it out. Screw all that. If you can't man up, don't even give it a go. Don't even give it a try. And this isn't a Debbie Downer. This is just, punch in the face that I wish I would have got prior to doing this. I know me. And I would have laughed and said, what the hell you're talking about? Watch, hold my beer and watch this shit, and kept pressing forward. And then I'd be right where I'm at now, telling you, holy shit, maybe I should have thought about this a little bit more before I dove into it. But, here we are, and it's rolling. And we're creating, we're going, and we're creating more. And some of the awesome things that have come out of this is now I'm collaborating with other people in my business. So with the content development team, we're taking people and we're interviewing. And with that interview, we're turning that into social content for. So I've got a team of writers working for me. I've got a team of video people working for me. I've got graphic designers. I've got people that are coming together. In the past, if I was doing this beginning of last year, I would have tackled all of this myself, thinking, well, I can do all this. Well, now that I'm outsourcing this work to other collaborators, my business feels like it has breath. Feels like it has life to it because now it's growing. And I'm learning the responsibility of paying vendors, and I'm learning the responsibility of managing teams when this is my company and my brand I want. So this is all skills that I'm learning along the way, when in the past I didn't need those skill sets. I sold a job, maybe trained or got it done, whatever, but other people took care of other portions of it. This is all things that I've had to learn through this process, and it's been tough. I can't say it hasn't been a lot of fun. I'm really surprised how well and shitty I've done all at the same time, but it's continuing to move forward, and I'm continuing to learn, and I really believe that this is going to continue to be my future. This is going to be the awesome ride to continue to rock and roll and go for it. So if being an entrepreneur is going to be your thing, right, that's what you want to do, I'm telling you, go outside, go to a local bar, go pick a fight with the biggest dude you can, and just let them knock you square in the face as hard as they can hit. If you can take that, now, I can hear my attorney in the background going, please God, don't tell him that. But the truth is, that's what it's like being an entrepreneur, is constantly getting punched in the face and decide, can I get up one more time? And can I keep moving forward? If you can handle that, jump in the game. If not, man, stay an employee. I promise you the employee ride, no matter how much you think the grass is greener on the other side, I promise you that employee ride is a hell of a lot easier than trying to do this shit on your own. The freedoms that come from doing this on your own, as long as you can handle that punch in the face, this is a good thing. So Jason Smith, man, I really, really appreciate this episode. We joked about it when I put this out there, is why do you got to make me do an episode that I've got to talk about my learning process through all this? And, the truth is, if I don't share my journey and my story with you guys, then nobody gets any value out of this. So I hope this helps you as you're figuring out if you're going to, want to get in the game as a, entrepreneur. I hope this makes you really decide, what your next move in life is, man. But I can tell you, whatever you plan on doing, you got this. You have to unleash that inner badass and go for it. So if I can help you out in any way, always let me know, man. But otherwise, keep running like hell, guys. Keep going for it. And just unleash that inner badass and run like hell.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we got out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done right now."